Hello everybody, it's Fabian again and welcome to another YouTube video. And I realize in the previous videos that I've made, I'm always talking about how you can save money and teaching you ways on how to save money, that I need to put my money where my mouth is and tell you guys how I was able to accumulate a $75,000 net worth in just under 3 years. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump right into the video. So when I first joined the military, I didn't know exactly how much I was going to make. Even the recruiters told me that my first handful of paychecks were going to be extremely sporadic and that they probably weren't going to make sense. Well, even though I didn't really know how much I was going to make, I knew that from working for my previous job at Hollister, I always saved about half my money. So I knew that with whatever new income that I was going to make, I needed to save at least 50%. And after an annoying 2 first months of being in boot camp, I was finally greeted with my very first paycheck of $1,431. Now that had been accumulating over the past 2 months, and while that may not seem like a lot, to an 18-year-old me who only really saw that money by working 5 months at Hollister and picking up many extra shifts, this was a substantial increase in my pay. Like I said before, I saved at least half, and for the remainder of that December, I only spent about $150 worth of it. That money went towards necessities that I needed for maybe uniform items, picking up some stuff to eat as there wasn't yet a galley available, going out to eat one time with my family after graduating boot camp, and just a smaller amount of other miscellaneous items. After I graduated boot camp, I went to A school in Pensacola, and over the next 2 months while I was there, I was averaging out about $150 a month. Most of this was honestly just necessities that I needed for the Navy. But I'm not gonna lie, yes, a few of it was some pretty dumb pleasure purchases.
What you got there?
It's a smoothie.
Like I said before, I am no exception to the sailor's spending curse. Also, my paychecks were pretty sporadic. For example, in the month of January, right after boot camp, I received $1,000 in the first half of the month, and the very next paycheck, I only received $500. This was a huge difference for me, and honestly, it taught me that I couldn't really spend anything between $500 and $1,000 at least, because I didn't know what I was going to make the following paycheck. But don't worry, I never got to that, because like I said, I always saved at least half. I only spent about $150 over those 2 months. Then right after I left A school, I finally transferred to my official command on the USS Harry S. Truman stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. Here is where I really focused on saving most of my money, as I went from saving 60 to 80% of my income back in A school to saving about 90 to 95% of my $1,500 monthly income. Then in April, I went on my very first deployment. So over the first 3 months of that deployment, I saved a grand total of $4,400. Now honestly, that wasn't a lot, especially considering that I was also receiving flat take pay and tax-free pay. Well, as it turns out, I actually forgot that I was saving about 65% and maxing out my Roth IRA in my TSP, all going towards the C fund. And for those of you who do not know what the C fund is, the C fund is basically like the S&P 500 just in military terms. So really from that, I had an additional $4,500, not so much saved, but invested as well. And honestly, came as a really cool surprise to me. After deployment, I went on leave right back to Sunnyside, California, because I was just sick of the weather here in Virginia. I really enjoyed my leave as I was going out to eat in all my favorite spots like In-N-Out, El Rey, some spots down by the beach. I took my girlfriend at the time on some pretty expensive dates, and I even paid for my own insurance on my dad's car so I could drive it around while I was visiting California. And I also helped him to pay for a rental car so he could use it while I used his car. Well, as you can imagine, over the course of those 2 weeks, I spent a wrecking $1,250. Now, I learned some huge lessons from this, and those lessons are: don't buy a promise ring. 2, don't show off your money. I get it, now you have all of this money, and all of a sudden, you can see that you can afford to pay the bill. Don't worry, you guys, I got the bill. I have my military money now, and I can afford to get all you guys. Or even really on your girlfriend. Hey, girlfriend, I have this huge paycheck here now. I'm gonna treat you somewhere nice. I'm gonna buy your nails. I'm gonna get you something nice to eat, take you out to all these restaurants every night while I'm here. Yeah, you're gonna go broke real fast. If they're really curious on how much money you spend, tell them to look on Google, because honestly, if they're really that interested, they can find all that information there. Now, the third biggest lesson I learned from that is track your spending even if you're on leave. If you're on vacation, there's still no excuse why you should not be budgeting, because when I was in California, I really didn't care how much anything cost, I just wanted it. See, I was tired on being on deployment, and for me, it really came down to food and experiences because I just missed doing all of that back when I was home. So price for me wasn't really an object. So make sure you'll always keep track of your expenses, no matter the situation. Now, when I came back from leave, I had about another couple months before our ship went right out on its next part of its deployment. And this time it was going to last for 4 months. During these 4 months, I started a couple of side businesses such as doing people's laundry and flying for people. Collectively, all that money earned me about $800, and that money right there is all the money I used while I was in port. This way, I saved 100% of my tax-free pay, and as well as this time, I was not contributing to my Roth IRA. Now, you're probably wondering why I wasn't contributing to my Roth IRA, and that was because I didn't like the fact that I did not have my cash on hand. See, at this point in my life, I knew that I was going to save for something, but I wasn't sure what. And then I wasn't going to have any cash on hand to do whatever I wanted to do once I came back to California. So for that dumb reason, I stopped investing into my TSP. Anyways, after I came back from deployment again, I went on leave for the second time. And after going through all the mistakes from last time, this time I spent a grand total of $662.69, and that was including my plane tickets. All that money was spent over the course of 2 weeks, and honestly, I was really proud of myself. Now, when I came back from leave, it was going to be a while before I went out to sea again. So I got back into my old routine of hanging out at Q80, using their Wi-Fi, then going to McDonald's after it closed, and then after McDonald's going back onto the ship to go to sleep. This went on over the course of the next several months until our next deployment. However, during the earlier part of those 7 months, I discovered something that completely changed my life. You see, my girlfriend at the time told me how her parents were planning on purchasing a new home and that they were going to be renting out their old home and getting some cash flow from that. This caught me completely off guard, and I was like, wait, what about renting? You see, to me, this was completely foreign. I hadn't heard anything about this up until that point. After looking more into it and doing my research back at Q80 and McDonald's, I ended up finding my passion for real estate. You see, I've always been into architecture. I've had Lego since I was very young, and I just love the art form of how buildings looked and the building process and the intricacies of what went into it. Now, some of you are probably thinking, why didn't you go into architecture? Well, I sucked at math, so that wasn't going to be an option. But with real estate, I also really love the business aspect of it. Like I said before in my older YouTube videos, once I went to boot camp, I realized that this really wasn't for me. But I wasn't going to quit just yet, and I thought I might as well just suck it up and go through it. So because of that reason, I wanted something where I wasn't going to be told every day of what to do, where to go, and how to sleep, and where to eat. I really wanted to be my own boss, and I found all that in becoming a real estate agent. Now, once I finally had this goal in mind, this drastically improved on the way I saved money. Mostly because now I felt like I was saving for a purpose instead of just saving for saving's sake. I was a lot more careful on where my money was going and being allocated because I knew that once I got out, this was the dream that I wanted to pursue. And by having the finances to back up that dream, it was going to be that much more possible to achieve. During that time, I jumped in my saving habits and now started saving anywhere from 95% of my income to 99% of my income. To boost that, I remember in May, I even tried to start 2 businesses. One was a bracelet making business and the other one was an apparel t-shirt making business. Pretty much what every veteran does outside the military. And I really think I picked it more because of the simplicity of it. I mean, I thought making t-shirts were going to be completely easy. Fast forward about a month and those 2 businesses ended up failing. However, even though they failed, I learned some extremely valuable lessons. Some of those lessons included overhead costs, where I was going to keep some of my merchandise, marketing, strategizing who I was going to sell to, who I was trying to appeal to, and everything in between. And probably the most important one that I learned is if I'm not enjoying it, then I probably shouldn't do it. So instead, what I would do in my spare time is I would go to Q80 in McDonald's and I would use their Wi-Fi and just keep researching about real estate. You see, I would keep researching on how it really was to be a real estate agent, as well as even looking on Zillow in my spare time and seeing investment properties that I could imaginarily buy. I remember even calling real estate agents just to ask them how it is being a real estate agent in Beverly Hills. For some reason, most of them weren't too really nice, but it's okay because I tried. I think they probably all thought that I was just some punk kid calling them just to waste their time. But in the end, it's fine because I definitely built up a thicker skin from that and I have nothing but thanks for them. Now, for my researching, I noticed that all the houses in California are obviously very expensive. And the place where I really wanted to invest was in California, more specifically probably somewhere around Baldwin Park or West Covina, around where I grew up. So because it was so expensive, I knew that I had to really do whatever it took to save at least 99% of my income. And for the next 4 months, I was doing exactly that. I would always eat at Base Galley, I barely went out, and if I did, I would always rideshare with friends. And probably the most important thing that I ever did was that I bought myself a composition notebook and I started writing down all my expenses and tracking my goals. I kid you not, that is probably one of the most important things that I did. You see, having this... Then in August of 2019, I went on my second deployment. This deployment was only going to be for a few months as I had the ability to fly off early. See, I just picked up a new rate as I was an undesignated airman before, so they flew me out of the Middle East. I went all the way from Bahrain to Italy to Africa and back home. Now it's early March of 2020, right where the illness really started to pick up and stocks started to drop. I knew from watching all my financial videos on YouTube that stocks would eventually go back up again in the long run. So with that information, I bought my very first set of 10 shares of Boeing at $102. Since that, I bought fairly at the bottom over the course of the next couple months, especially with my newly opened Roth IRA with Vanguard's VFIAX, and I ended up maxing out my Roth IRA contributions for 2019 and 2020. But aside from stocks, I really wanted to start a side hustle so I could start increasing my income to hopefully not just save $75,000, but $100,000. So in the late month of March, I finally bought my very first car. My first car was a used 2006 Scion XA. It was right on its way to becoming a beater. It saw most of its depreciation, and it was amazing on gas. Honestly, to fill up the tank cost me about $18 here in Virginia, and that could last me for the entire month. Now, it was with my used Scion that I was able to sign up with DoorDash and started a side hustle with them. Over the course of my DoorDash career, I was able to make $7,000, and I would use that to go towards my expenses once I got out of the military. However, because of the pandemic and the lack of stimulus checks, DoorDash now isn't really the most lucrative business, at least for my area. So for now, I sort of put that on pause and am now putting more focus and time into YouTube. Now, living in my new base, I sort of got into my old routine of really doing nothing, not going out a whole lot, and just continuing to research about being a real estate agent in Beverly Hills, also studying more about investment properties, and continually investing in stocks over the course of mid-2020. And then in August of 2020, I finally started receiving BAS and BAH. This helped boost my income significantly. I ended up finding a place by the beach with my girlfriend where we would each split the rent, and I only had to pay about $600 a month for my $1,275 paycheck of BAH. And then that brings us to today. Now, with the appreciation of my stocks, my cash reserves, my equity and some furniture that I got from my apartment, and even my car, I've accumulated a net worth of $75,134. Getting here was definitely not easy, and I hated the years of the same mundane schedule where I would just get off of work, go right to Q80, work out, do some more research, go to McDonald's because Q80 would close, and then going back to my ship to sleep in a 6x3 foot rack with no Wi-Fi. But doing all this has allowed me to achieve the net worth that I have today and bring me more optimism on my future outside of the military. A lot of people tell me, Fabian, like, how could you even survive off of the little money that you would spend over those months? And yes, I'm not gonna lie, having almost no bills to my name definitely helped. But see, the thing is you don't have to save $75,000 or even $100,000. There should honestly be almost no reason why you shouldn't come out of the military with at least $50,000, especially if you're using it as a stepping stone. And if you are thinking about the military, I hope you take a lot of the advice that I'm giving you seriously, as a lot of this information that I'm giving you can really put you in a good position when you finally get that DD-214 and you walk off the ship for the very last time. And with all that being said, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like and thumbs up on the video if you enjoyed it and you guys want to see more content like this. I'm really enjoying making these YouTube videos, and I'm going to try to ramp up my production of posting more every week. Comment down below on videos that you'd like to see or questions that you want answered, and I will be more than happy to go over them. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.